Football discourse is toxic. So often people will talk about the downsides of a game, who needs to be fired, who needs to be dropped from the side immediately, but this is primarily a conversation for fans to have, or at least it traditionally was. The media used to be this unbiased thing, but now news aggregators are increasingly getting more and more and more and more interested in getting as many clicks as they can. So you end up with this question of, do you stay as a journalist and write the actual story, or do you become an entertainer and write the myth? I know on this channel I prefer to go for actual stories, but things tend to vary away from that and stray towards a sort of weird built up narrative where things are just bad and wrong and horrible. And in this video I thought I'd do something a little bit different. I had a little bit of a deep dive into one particular website and how they tend to approach reporting on football, and ultimately why that's sort of souring the discourse around the world of football. So strap in, because this gets a little bit weird. Now, keep in mind, for the sake of this video, I'm focusing on one website. There are plenty that do this, but this one sort of caught my eye, so it's worthy of a little bit more of a deep dive. Keep in mind, it's a sort of widespread thing. I've just only had a chance to have a proper delve into one of them. For the sake of this video, we are focusing on Football Fancast. Far from the only website, as I've mentioned, but one that especially caught my eye. If you see me glancing down, I want to get my facts right for the majority of this because it gets a little bit weird. Football Fancast was founded in 2009 with the general goal of giving news and updates and views and all that fun stuff to the people before it was acquired by Valnet Inc. in 2022. Valnet's website boasts about the monthly sessions and page views of Football Fancast of 13 million sessions, 15 million page views, all whilst having a set of editorial standards that claim they stand for reliability, meaning that you can go to their website and know that you're getting a good amount of quality, originality, so they write their own stuff, they don't plagiarise, and accuracy. Everything is true to approximately facts in their content, amongst a wealth of other features. However, whilst this is all well and good, being bought out by a company means only one thing. That company's going to want to start making a little bit of profit sooner or later, and Valnet are exactly in that mould. They currently own, and I'm just going to get the facts right again, Give Me Sport, The Sportster, Football League World, and importantly for this conversation, Football Fancast, alongside 26 other online media brands. Within the last year, the UK branch of the company has massively increased the amount of cash in hand it's got from 250k-ish to £500,000, which is impressive, whilst reducing its debts, which is firmly in line with Valnet's main goals of make a hell of a lot of money, but we'll get into that a little bit later. And I'm going to set out a little bit of a timeline here just to make sure that everyone is sort of in the loop. On the 22nd of March at about 10 PM, I was looking for something to make a video on. I was thinking, I got to get something out there. I ended up not, because, I'll be honest, Cold Sore Boy here made me self-conscious. But I still had a little bit of a look, ended up not making anything. But I found the following headline. Barker must drop Leeds star, who is fast becoming as ineffective as Aronson. Now you might think, damn, that's a really harsh headline. What's going on there? The piece was about Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Days earlier, Dominic Calvert-Lewin had his first call up to the England national team in a hell of a long time and could potentially play a part in Thomas Tuchel's World Cup squad, which is a big step. And I was very surprised by this, so I decided to have a little bit of a deeper look. And in the previous 7 days, the company had posted 9 separate articles about Leeds United dropping players or selling players, often using a template that effectively started with a demand to the manager. So, in this case, Farker must drop, then a little bit of mystery, Leeds star, and then negative comparison to another Leeds United player. In this case, who is fast becoming as ineffective as Aronson. Very sort of formulaic. And I did think this was a bit weird, so I had a look at the wider site and see if it was just a rogue writer that didn't like Leeds United very much, but no, absolutely not. As of 10:30 PM that night, 8 out of the 10 most recent articles were deliberately written to bait readers into that negative thought, into, ooh, let's see who's being complained about this time, 7 of which used the terms either must drop, must sell, or must be dropped, without specifically naming the player, so you're being baited into, ooh, what's the bad thing about it's the same sort of hook as gossip in general. The clickbait gets a hell of a lot more obvious when you switch over to a browser that hasn't got ad block, as I thankfully had the first time I opened the what's the word? Webpage, thank you. Only to see 4 adverts in the space of as many sentences, one of which was a dating site for a particularly busty Thai lady, one of which was about, I believe, wardrobe malfunctions for female celebrities, one was for Temu, and one was a video advert that I thankfully clicked off very, very quickly. Note to self, this was a very, very fresh install of a browser just to make sure I had the cleanest possible look at what the website was like. That's what it's serving to everyone, including children. Whilst Thanks, brain. Whilst negativity sells, as does sex, apparently, and they weren't missing out on an opportunity. Initially, I reached out to Football Fancast on the 22nd of March, a couple of hours after I had a look through the website, and I went, oh, this is a little bit much, asking to either email them with some questions or talk through some editorial choices with them over a video chat, and they haven't gotten back to me in the slightest. Clearly, this is a big part of why the discourse around football is getting more negative. After all, if all of the media is saying negative things, then surely the truth must be negative, rather than people looking at it as people are framing things badly in order to get clicks and make as much profit as they can. But before I get into specifics on why they choose to publish what they do, I did say we'd return to Valnet. This is the part of the video where I will do quite a lot of reading from a prepared document, because, oh, buddy, these boys like a lawsuit, and that feels like that could be a little bit of a problem. Back to me. As I mentioned earlier, Valnet bought Football Fancast as a part of Snack Media Limited, or at least I think that's how it's pronounced. It's like SN ampersand CK, so I'm assuming it's Snack Media Limited. However, they're far from the first company to be bought out by Valnet, which was founded in 2012 after their founders sold their shares in multiple porn sites, which were founded by them, including Pornhub. In the time since, the company has expanded aggressively with profit motive at its core. This is where we get a little bit careful with the reading. Let's... An important note before I continue. The next section of information was revealed by The Wrap in March 2025. In April of the same year, Valnet sued The Wrap for libel. All of this is alleged, but it is important to note that the article is incredibly well cited and supports all of its claims with evidence. There are several fruitier allegations surrounding the company's founder in an article linked below, but even with that aside, you'll start to see a pretty clear picture. I won't go into those further, but I will link to this article below. The report from The Wrap states that workers were offered $100 if they promised not to join a class action lawsuit against Valnet for alleged exploitative working conditions, including poor rates of pay. In May 2023, the company laid off 3 senior editors at CBR, another one of their sites, with reports emerging that employees were struggling to keep up with Valnet's demands, and the company were, quote, seemingly firing those who tried to stand up for writers. In May 2025, Valnet acquired the gaming website Polygon, before laying off over 20 members of staff. The founding editor-in-chief of Polygon stated that Valnet literally refused to meet with me or answer a single question of mine throughout this process. In June 2025, Valnet acquired Military.com for just over $27 million. It was a profitable website, working perfectly effectively. However, 14 of the company's 17 original staff writers were reportedly laid off and replaced by contractors. In 2025, The Gamer, a website created by Valnet themselves, was subject to mass layoffs, including the entire features team and several other staff members. Former writers for Valnet-owned sites have described the content as junky clickbait, and the company itself as a content mill, where freelance contractors are brought in as the company prioritizes mass quantity over quality to churn out mind-numbing SEO bait. Again, this is all what is alleged within the report. These isn't me saying these things. However, if you take a look at the stuff that is put out by Football Fancast, it does sort of ring true. So let's get a little bit more into Football Fancast's motivation. There was another little bit that I forgot to mention in that take that I'm just going to hop in there. According to the report, they have a blacklist of freelancers who, when they note that the conditions aren't brilliant, Valnet will put them on this blacklist and you're banned from writing from any of their websites, according to the Wrap at the very least. Yeah, the court case, by the way, the last update was a motion for dismissal with no significant update since. After delving into all the information behind Football Fancast's owners, everything sort of begins to add up. Everything is so distinctly negative because rage is one of the strongest emotions, and emotion is ultimately what sells online. Every article is structured in the most infuriating way possible, because that's how you get as many ads as possible onto your device, and they get paid a little bit more. You put the only information in the article right at the bottom of 1,000 words, and that's 1,000 words worth of scrolling and adverts for, I don't know, Thai dating sites. They found a template to churn out views and it very clearly works for them, but interestingly, the site hasn't always been this way. I had a search for articles published prior to the Valnet acquisition, and there is just a tsunami of positivity there, with very few articles talking players down, and there's plenty of analysis and even some more offbeat pieces like football shower thoughts. But that ultimately didn't last. The introduction of Valnet as a sort of corporate owner, an ocean away without a single thought about the football itself, has presumably seen that joy and that interest in writing about football replaced with a drive to just hit certain metrics. And the heart of the feeling has just been ripped out of the content as far as I can tell. Having learned more about Valnet, I don't really blame the editors of Football Fancast, because heads have rolled, reportedly, at other Valnet-owned sites for just the sin of being acquired by the business, never mind failing to cut costs and reach these revenue targets that are presumably set. As I mentioned earlier, this isn't just a problem for Football Fancast, because venture capitalist firms will just search for websites they can buy on the cheap, and then either try and run them at a profit in the immediate term, or try and build their value and sell them in the long term, ultimately doing it for the cash either way. Countless websites have grown, developed an audience, become beloved, and then found themselves in hands that didn't care about the audience and didn't care about the creators. They only cared about the balance sheet at the end of the financial year and whether whoever did the acquisition is able to, I don't know, get a little bit more of a bonus. It is the online concept of enshittification at its finest. You get something that is your favourite bar of chocolate that's now half as big as it used to be, but costs 3 times more, and you're wondering, why did I like this in the first place? But one question does remain, since sites like this are very clearly chasing one thing, the sort of financial goals over the journalistic ones, and ultimately, whether by accident or on purpose, poisoning narratives in football, how do we fix it? And how do we get back the way that we see the beautiful game? And for me, the plan is relatively simple. You just make toxic clickbait unviable. You just don't fall into it. You just don't click it. Because whilst changing the viewing habits of an entire audience is borderline impossible, you can still make a personal decision to avoid this kind of content. You can still deliberately go, oh, there's probably nothing behind this story, let's skip over it. So, on news sites, on YouTube, wherever it is, just find a source that you know pumps out the truth, or at least what they believe to be the truth, as opposed to something speculative and negative and just bad vibes, and has actual good faith arguments, and get into a nice, genuine conversation about the sport that we all love. Because detoxifying the conversation around football might feel impossible, but it's the very least that we can do to try and make those surroundings that little bit nicer, make better content more viable, and we might just force those sites to not only try a little bit harder, but to enjoy football again. And that's what I want us all to do, really. Please? Anyway, that's kind of it for that video. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. I'm gonna do more actual football content in the next week or so, but I'll be honest with you, this kind of bugged me, so I had to talk about it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, like, comment, subscribe, all the fun stuff that YouTubers tell you to do. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you later. Ooh, bye bye.